Good morning, and it's good to be with you guys again. And thank you for joining us this morning for Easy Access. Obviously, this is an opportunity for folks to join together and have comments, conversations, questions you may have about things that are going on. Lots of things going on this time of year at the University of Missouri. Obviously, winding down a semester for those that are involved in teaching, in particular with our students on campus. It's a good time for them as they see students begin to graduate and those processes begin to take place next weekend here. But again, a good time of year, and I think all of us are glad to see the sun shining. So yesterday we had here on the campus a couple things that you might be interested in that give you a sense of sort of the diversity of the breadth of things we're working on. One of the things was very traditional. 4-H ham breakfast was yesterday morning. 4-H Ham Breakfast is an event held every year that celebrates the award-winning ham from the state fair, and that's a breakfast for donors and foundation board members and other partners come together and just do a celebration, sort of a cap note kind of event held here on campus. President Joy, Chancellor Cartwright were both there. A great event here, a lot of fun around 4-H yesterday morning. Lapita did a terrific job as our 4-H director of really bringing a lot of energy and a lot of vision in her comments. So lots of celebration. In my case, I left there and I went over and I did something that I wanted to share with you because this kind of shows you that, again, 4-H thinking about that very traditionally in extension. Then I left there and 30 minutes later, I presented to all the coaches for the University of Missouri. Jim Sturk had me come over and do a presentation for them to really talk about what extension engagement is and how it may partner with them in the future, how we're doing some things already, and to really help them better understand what it means to be in extension work or be in engagement work, and how, again, that's a part of the community that we're all in here at the university. So that was kind of a unique thing that happened yesterday. I had not presented to coaches like that before, and but it was great feedback, and actually got a couple emails overnight from different ones about follow-ups that they saw in that. So a lot of good stuff happening there. And again, that's just a tip of the iceberg kind of thing. Spent some time earlier this week in Kansas City, a full day there actually doing things there. Spoke at a conference out at the Kauffman Foundation for a group there on aging. And I'm not exactly sure what to think when I get invited to do an aging conference now, but it were people that were involved in nonprofit primarily and government work related to aging and the aging population. So really great folks there, Shatomi and others have got us involved in that. So again, great event, spent some time with some stakeholders there, and then with the Block Foundation doing some development work with James Preston. So it's been, again, that just gives you some insight of the breadth and the way we're trying to lead and hopefully partner in different ways. So any questions yet, Dennis?
Yes, it is May. And with May, come the questions about budget. So could you tell us what might be known about the state budget?
Yes, I can. Actually, last night I just got the email before walking over here. The state budget has passed. It passed last night, I guess around midnight or after last night. From what I understand, the university is probably, and again, I haven't seen the numbers yet, but it looked like the university budget was going to be fully funded again, which is great. If that is true, and we'll know here in the next hour or two, few hours, it definitely puts us in a positive position as a university, which means we're in a much better position. We were very concerned about withholdings and things like that. Apparently, that is not going to happen right now. So again, it looks like we're in a pretty solid shape in terms of the University of Missouri system budget, which means the University of Missouri Columbia, and therefore our budget is in pretty good shape from that perspective. Again, the complication that we have here at the university is this enrollment decline still hit us this year, the last year that'll hit us. So we should be beginning to trajectory back out of that. One of the things you'll see in the budget is they did get, and I did get this note this morning, that the TPMC, the Translation Precision Medicine Complex, got $10 million. That's pretty big for the University of Missouri and for the state to see a earmarked item specifically for a building after many years of not seeing that. That's a breakthrough for the university. 10 million is a small amount compared to the 230 or 40 million it's going to take to build a building, but it is a signal that the legislature and others see the value in what we're beginning to do. So I expect what they'll do in that is that the university system will continue to go back over the next few years and move and get that number to grow. So that's very important. It's part of the AAU effort that they have here to sustain that and to grow that. The research, which again grows the entire university in terms of students, outreach, et cetera, what we do. So again, the budget overall looks really good. I might also add, though, that there's another piece of this, and you're going to hear more about this. My understanding is that I think next week, and it is next week, I know it is, the University of Missouri is going to be rolling out a new budget model. And the new budget model is based on, it's really a budget allocation model. It's been about a 2-year process of figuring out how to change the way money is allocated here to units. It puts a lot more responsibility into individual units, and it's not as it's been done in the past, which was really a historical view. They would look at what you got last year, and that kind of told you what you were going to get this year. Going forward, there's going to be a time in, I think, 2021 where there will be a benchmark, and we will get an allocation, and from that point forward, we'll be able to grow that if we are able to hit certain metrics and be competitive in certain areas that align with the strategic plan of the university. So I think we're actually beginning to see a turning of the corner. Now, there's a lot of factors that play into that. The state revenue continue to be flat or growing somewhat. That's a key. You got to have that. There's some other factors. You can't have another crisis in the university like we had a few years ago. There's just a lot of stuff you've got to keep track of that can throw this thing off. But it does look like going forward, as you look out to 2021, 2022, and beyond, we actually could see ourselves begin to grow out again. And that's a very positive thing. I don't think that would be happening, though, had we not, in extension, done a major restructure. That sent a signal that we were serious about doing our work better and hopefully more impactful. And that has been very well received by university leadership above me, the curators and others. So we have good support there, and it's been well received by the legislature too. So again, I share a lot there, but there's pieces about the immediate, but then the long term actually looks pretty good too. So hopefully that'll make you feel good on this nice sunny day. It's not all that warm, but it is sunny this morning. So hopefully that gives us a bright spot in the budget area.
Okay, we have a question that starts with a comment. We've had a wonderful return on investment information shared for the state. Are there plans to be able to provide more county-specific return on investment information to councils and commissioners?
Yes, and there is. And some of you have heard me talk about that. That's something we need to come back and do. The group that did our study is a group called Techonomy. They do this kind of work. In fact, after doing our study, states all over the country are using them, and they actually said they probably should be paying me some kind of fee for all the good business they're getting. They've done some great work for other states. And I've told them that I do want them to come back and do a more in-depth study to look at particular counties or regions. I've got to think about when I want that to happen, though, because of all these other moving pieces with budget allocation, et cetera, and you don't want to do it too tight. The study we did, which came out in 2017, was based on 2016 numbers. So typically what you do is you do these in about a 4 or 5 year increment. So what I'm thinking is it's probably 2020 or thereabout. We will probably do that again once we get sort of the numbers baked in for our 2020, end of 2020, which means it will come out in 2021. So it seems like a long time off, but that would give us really a 4 or 5 year look. And when we do that, we can drill down into counties. We will also have let our new model sink in enough that there'll be relationships built, and that'll give a good tool for people to use. We are already, I think you might find this interesting, we already know that the 945 million we talk about, we're already over $1 billion. We know that we've already tripped over the $1 billion mark because of other programs. There's programs that have been in existence for a long time that are branded name programs and extension. And they are now doing a much better job because of our study, I think, of tracking their impact. And when you look at the trajectory they're on and how they're growing even in the last year and their economic impact, it's a good story. So we've got a lot of good things to tell there. So right now it's at the state level view. We can look at some programs that are delivered statewide, but the question about getting it to the county and regional things won't going to be a next step. But again, it's probably going to be another year out before we really start having them come in and do that again, to let our staffing catch up and all these restructures get in place so that we can then have some good numbers. I don't want to do it too premature because I don't think we would get, and you don't want to be doing it every other year. You don't do it that tight. It needs to be more of every 4 or 5 years, just as the university system, I expect, will be doing theirs as well. Something that people might want to be aware of is that in the interim, the tool that Chris has out there that shows the system information, you can go into that tool and see county by county, more or less commitment to that county to show the personnel and the resources that we have working in that area. So that might hold them over. Yeah, there's a couple things you can go look at. One is the district data sheets. And if you drill into that, the University of Missouri system, you can see a lot of things that you can talk about in a narrative about the impact there. If you look at, again, what Dennis is talking about, go and look at Chris Fulcher's work and his team's work and cares around data. There's a lot of things they can pull for you or show you how to pull it for yourself. That's even better, to show you how the university is invested there and what that impact is and how that then multiplies out into value. So there's a lot of tools there that you can actually use. Good point, Dennis. So if you have questions around that and you're thinking, man, I'd love to have a little more just for my county or my area, do not hesitate to reach out to Chris Fulcher and tell him what you're thinking about, because a lot of times those guys in that world can actually guide you and show you a way to do some things just for your area. And I know he'd be glad to help you. He's really interested in being very responsive and service driven to your needs. And that's one of the reasons we brought them into our portfolio of things we do. I've done a lot of things here, and that was one of the, I think, really good things that we've done. A lot of folks involved in that, but getting Chris and his team to be a part of our unit has been incredibly important. His people do great work. So don't hesitate to reach out to him. That's a great point. And just shoot him an email and then maybe spend some time with him or his team to figure out what you need and let them guide you through that. And once you do it, you get some of that data, I think it becomes very much easier for you to do on your own. Okay, we have a question in queue, and then after that we have a comment in queue, then no questions. So keep the questions coming in the chat box. The comment is, thanks to Horticulture Program on campus for hosting the State Master Gardener Conference in June. So I don't know if you have any comments you want to make about that. Yes, I'll be there. I'll be there for part of the day. And I've got to present or be with that group for a little while. Glad to have them here. It's really important. Master Gardeners, it's not only big in Missouri, that's a big deal nationally. It's a brand of extension nationwide. So we're really glad to have them here. Really looking at how we can continue to partner and work with them to build out that volunteer base, to get more people engaged in that. A lot of interest by the public in gardening and gardening related kinds of things. So again, a great program. Glad to be a partner. Appreciate, as you have said, horticulture folks here getting involved and supporting that. Okay, we did get a question. This might be a long shot, but would you at some point consider conducting a workplace climate assessment survey to access for inclusion and level of respect for individual needs, abilities, and potential? Climate affects productivity and effectiveness of employees as well as their ability to grow. It would be great to assess our workplace climate disparities, especially as it relates to underrepresented groups and whether or not we have a fair playing field for all. I could not agree more. Two things on that. The answer is yes. We are going to do a climate survey at some point. Again, you don't do that in the midst of an organizational change because there's just too much noise and too many things moving. You've got to let things get set again so you can do that well. Otherwise, your data is skewed. So I expect sometime in the next 18 months we'll do that. And I have that sort of in my mind to do. It's something I've been thinking about. I just didn't feel like it was the right time to do it. I think we've got to get through some of the budget stuff we've been going through, which certainly, once people feel like we're in a solid position, see a clear path forward, how that grows. Once people see, okay, this is the job I'm going to be in, this is kind of what I do my work, those pieces start to fold in, then you can get a more accurate view of that. But I'm very committed to this area, in particular as it deals with diversity and inclusion. I think and equity, I think we're going to have to really be serious about that. This past week, last Friday, had a great conversation with our Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity here on campus. They were here. I spent a lot of time with them. Kevin McDonald, who you may have heard is actually leaving, is taking a new job at the University of Virginia, but spent an hour with him yesterday. One of the things that ties to this whole conversation, is not only a climate survey, but also having a really good, solid diversity and inclusion equity council. Michaela, before she left to take her new job, was actually beginning to formulate that with me, and we were working on that. We had some teammates around the state and on campus that were very interested in that work. We're going to be standing that back up. It'll probably be sometime late summer. And that group is a group I will charge with monitoring climate as it relates to many of these issues that you're kind of getting into. Now, there's a broad range of climate issues that go even beyond diversity and inclusion that you need to look at. Certainly, those are at the center of that. And so I really want us to walk into the excellence and inclusivity framework that Kevin McDonald brought to this university. It is outstanding. It really hits on all the buttons you need to hit on in terms of trying to reflect the workplace, have environments in the workplace that you need to have. That framework is outstanding. We will be using that. So again, the steps are, number one, I'm going to get this council back in place sometime late summer, early fall. You'll start seeing them begin to work. They will begin to lay out sort of a strategy or plan around what we need to do. Part of that will be probably doing a climate survey. There'll also be a lot of training we need to do. We need to do a lot of work around this area because it's so important to the future of your workplace, not only in terms of doing the good work we already do, but also attracting and retaining employees that you want to have in the future. So yes, very committed. I'm there. I think it's just a matter of timing when we want to drop that into the mix.
Okay, new question. Is there any movement on a professional day or event on campus for county support staff?
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot, and I'm very committed to that. I'd love to have your feedback and what you'd like to see on that. I have had a lot of folks express a lot of interest. This year we brought county council reps in, so I have to be mindful of budget and what we can do in any particular year. If that is something that this group, though, and as you talk to colleagues, are interested in, just let me know. I need to get a temperature on that. It's probably something I think Joe Lear and some others are on here today, regional directors. Maybe the regional directors could give me a sense of that. Maybe you can poll your faculty and your staff as well and see if that's something that they would like. I would like to bring them in because I think it could be really helpful to have them here for a couple of days to really establish sort of where we're headed, how they fit into that. I think it's important. So thank you for bringing it up. But I'm going to pivot that back to our regional directors, to Mark, to kind of gather that information. And let's find a time in our calendar over the next year or so that we might be able to do that. I don't think that would, in any way be a problem. I think it's important. And I don't think it's something you do every year. But I do think you need to do it periodically, every year or two, every couple of years, 3 years, do that kind of rotation in so that people feel a connectedness to this campus. And I know the campus would love to have them. So, yes, I think it's great. Let me know what you think. I'm going to push that one back to you guys. If that's something you really see a need for, I definitely want to be responsive to that.
Okay, new topic. Has there been any discussion about an NTT process for promotion for non-specialist faculty in MU Extension?
Non-specialist faculty. I'm going to say there probably has been some conversation around it because about anything you're going to ask me, there's been conversation around. But as to where that would be at this point, I don't have an answer. I'm not sure who's sending that. Let's make a note of that, Karen, that particular one. And again, Dennis, it's non-tenure track faculty promotion for non-specialists. Let's get a note out on that, sort of an update of where we are, and then we can seek some input to us about what you're thinking we need to do or what might be helpful there. So yes, we'll follow up, and I'll make sure we get an answer for you.
Okay, we've got it's kind of a question, comment, feedback to an earlier topic, and that is, would it be possible to visit with Berkeley Hudson Journalism as you form the Committee on Diversity? Even before, Berkeley is not in extension, but he has lots of faculty experience and advice to offer.
Yes, and I know Berkeley. Berkeley was one of the early faculty members I ran into, just got to know personally here. Absolutely, I think it'd be really good. And there's some other great people here on campus as well. Berkeley obviously brings a lot of depth and a personal interest and passion to that issue. But there's also a lot of other faculty I think we could bring in and other experts that could really help enrich what we want to do here. Ultimately, what I want to have is a organizational framework or an organizational climate where people want to be here and work. And that there's a lot of variables in that. Obviously compensation is a piece of that. But when you look at what people go to work every day, that's becoming less and less of the thing. It's really about the value of the work, the contributions they make, the value they feel from the organizational structure, the professional development we offer, the ability to grow in their jobs. There's a lot of factors. So, yeah, I think Berkeley and others could be very helpful, not only from the diversity standpoint, but also looking more broadly. There are a lot of efforts, too. You might find this interesting at the university system level. Dr. Joy and others there, in particular in the HR arena, are really looking at how the overall climate of the university system and how that is being played out on campuses or through our work through outreach and extension and engagement. So, yeah, I think it's very timely. And again, I think he'd be a great resource for us.
Okay, we have no more questions in queue. Well, there you go. How timely. Thank you. Please discuss developing funding partnerships with smaller financial stakeholders for expanding local county staff. Can we work to keep campus costs minimal to encourage more of this type of resource development?
Yes, that's an answer. I'll give you yes. I can say yes to that. We realize that we're entering sort of a new era of partnerships, of collaborations, philanthropy, and how all that mixes together. Actually, James Preston and I spent the day together Wednesday of this week, traveling and doing donor-related kinds of things. Let me start there. One of the things that's beginning to happen at my level is I am being much more intentional and focused in this whole area that you're talking about. Partnerships, collaborations, philanthropy, all of that mix, spending a lot more time there because I need to model that for you. Now, I've done a lot of that since I've been here, but it needs to be more expressive. It needs to be more rooted in things that you can see and then hopefully model things at this level. So there's a shift going on in my calendar and my schedule to do a lot more of that. When it comes down to the level and working at more of a local level, we've got to be more intentional and help you with the tools you need. Mark Stewart and I talked about this week, or this past week, that we've got to find models of excellence where people that are in extension-like work around the country are doing this work. And you have peers in other states that are doing incredible work in this, working with small donors, trying to keep costs down centrally on campus, as you mentioned. There's a lot of things around that we can work on and begin to show people, and that's important in Missouri, show people examples of how this might work. This is a new day. Jim Spain, many of you know Dr. Spain, and I were talking about this yesterday. I ran into him in the hallway, and we're just catching up, and in our conversation, we kind of both described it this way, that, when you bring a new assistant professor into the campus, and let's say that they are in some area of research, over time, you kind of point them towards certain dollars and help them understand how to get grants, how to get contracts, maybe philanthropy as well. Out of that, they build a lab, and they have postdocs, and they have graduate students working with them. Ultimately, they may have some staff that work for them on a particular area of endeavor. All right, now just think through that, and then think about being a county engagement specialist. You're in a county, you're there by yourself. You're thinking to yourself, if in 5 to 7 years, I could have 3 people helping me in these areas, which are really important, that's going to require me to do partnerships. So maybe there's partnerships I could do for a halftime FTE with the school system. Maybe there's a halftime partnership with a local nonprofit, or maybe a couple nonprofits that we could do some work in health or what have you. Maybe there's an opportunity. Maybe we've got some really strong leaders in our community that have been very ardent supporters of extension that would like to do something philanthropically that could stay in this community. I've just laid out 3 different angles that you can think about. Then what we've got to do is have the support systems through James and through others working at our level to help you steward that and work through that and figure out how do you build that out, connect the dots. Some of those funds may come here. Some of them may stay in go to our development fund. Some of those may be in different arrangements. We do it in different ways at the community or county level. Game's on. I'm there. And having done this kind of thing in my life, in my career at different points, I know you can build capacity. I know you can do it. I have no doubt. Let me give you another example. Let's say you're I'll use livestock or agronomy. Let's say you're in one of those and you're a regional specialist, and right now you're an agronomist and you're covering 5 counties. And you're thinking, man, that's a big area. I wish I could figure that out. Let's just imagine that agronomist working with maybe faculty here on campus and maybe their own innovation thinks about, I see some grant money out there, and if I could just figure out a way and had support to figure out how to get some of those dollars, I could probably build some kind of extension program here in this area that we could have not only maybe from some county investment, maybe, I don't know, maybe some nonprofit or whatever, but maybe there's a way to build out, to have an educator work under me. So I'm a specialist, and I've got an educator, an ag educator working in agronomy, helping support my work. And so rather than me having to do everything, I'm doing some things. This person's going out. I feel really good about who they are. They've got that, maybe a 4-year degree, or maybe they've got a credential of some kind, but they're working with you. You've now created a team. You got a team of 2. And then that begets another person. And then you get going and you spin it up, and suddenly you've got people going. On the other side of it, let's say we've got campus faculty who want to do work out in community. So suddenly they're thinking about, well, we'd really like to do some work around erosion control, and we're trying to figure that out. So what we could do is, at this level, you might have faculty who go and get a NIFA grant or an AFRI grant, and they bring that money in. And as a part of that, they need people, so they have staff members on that grant. They hire staff to go out and work in your area, your region, tied to you as an agronomist, building capacity again to do a lot of good work in those communities. There's ways to do this. It's there, and we have the smart people to figure it out. It's not going to be a matter of intellectual horsepower. It's going to be a matter of figuring out how do we transition ourselves from being only program delivery to program leadership. And you're still going to want to do program delivery. I love program delivery personally. I enjoy it. I had to speak at an event this week. I absolutely love it. I enjoy that. But I also know that program leadership means I build capacity in others, find funds, find partnerships that allow me to multiply myself. So many people are doing multiple things at the same time. I wound up a lot in that question because I think that question is so central. Because if you've heard me talk about our funding model going forward, I've talked about the federal money, the university contribution, which will be in the new budget model allocation. We know the county level will continue to probably grow some, but it's a slow growth. That's just a structural issue as much as anything in Missouri, and the way counties and what they spend their money on. So that number is going to be slow growth at best. Our growth in the future is really going to be in grants, contracts, fees, and philanthropy. And if we can figure out how to pull those 4 threads, some people are going to be much more on the philanthropic side. Other people are going to say, well, I don't really have a lot of that, but I can get a grant, or I can get a fee going on a program. So my point is, if we can pull those threads right, then what it does, it allows us to leverage this other side of the column here, the federal, state, and local dollars, in a way that they really become a lever for other things. We've got to think that way. That is the new day. It's going to take a lot of time to move us all into that culture. I can tell you personally that it's a personal journey for me. It is not the way I was brought up in this world. It is not the way I thought. But I also understand that there's an opportunity here to transform the way we do our work and to be much more in control of our own destiny. And that's what I'm trying to seek here, is that we in Extension in particular control destiny. We don't need to be subject to the whims of the legislature. We need to know that if we do our work well, that we can grow ourselves forward. So hopefully that's helpful to you. I've said it enough now, and I'm beginning to say it even more, that it's getting easier for even me to say. But I think if people can see that, and they're not going to be successful every time, it's not going to, there's a lot. I can tell you in philanthropy, for instance, we ask for a lot more than we ever get. But if you ask enough, and you're going to get some, and that sum adds up to enough to get the work going. So we can't see ourselves as, well, I wasn't successful in philanthropy, I wasn't successful in grants, so I'm going to quit. No, it is a constant march toward things to try to figure out how do we galvanize support in all those different buckets of grants, contracts, fees, philanthropy, so that we are leveraging the federal, state, and the local contributions. I've said a lot there, but I hope that's helpful to you and as you think about framing that.
Okay, people have woke up. We got questions coming in. There's a question about whether or not you've made an attempt to have a written summary of what you have learned regarding all of the county visits that you've made.
Wow. Written summary, we do have an archive of what we found through the community conversations, which definitely aligns with what I've learned. I can give you a summary. I mean, obviously, if I had to summarize it just for you, is there a written document? Probably not. But there's pieces of it that are out there in video and other things that Dennis and others have helped me do. If you listen to in fact, if you go back and look at some of the things that are posted out there that show those early videos of going out and listening and learning, and then you'll begin to see the threads come through. One of the things that we heard a lot, and I still hear this, is there's a great appreciation for our desire to have high touch. The CES model helps begin to establish that. At least there's somebody dedicated to their county. They appreciate that. And so even though it's just one, it is one. And for some counties, it's more than they had. And so again, we're having to evolve that position and figure out what you can do, what the capacities are. You're only one in a county, and in some counties that's more easy to do maybe than others, depending on the population and the structure of the county and sort of the political climate of the county. But anyway, that's a step. So we know high touch was important. We also know that traveling the state, the importance of agriculture. Agriculture in this state is such a big driver. There's so much here. And it's not just rural, it's urban. If you're in Kansas City and St. Louis, there's such a plant science and animal health driver in those communities that ag's a deal here. And so I think agriculture has a chance to reframe itself around ag technology. I think we can do a lot more in the ag tech world. In fact, when I was in Kansas City this week, I reiterated to those folks that we need to think about an animal corridor that comes to Mizzou, plant corridor coming from St. Louis to Mizzou, to really capitalize on the plant and animal science research going on here. And there's a lot of, actually that's getting a little traction out there now. So again, agriculture being a big piece. So you've got this high touch, you got agriculture. Historically, if you look at 4-H, it's really well received across the state. People love 4-H. That's not a surprise. 4-H comes out very strong. There's a great I don't want to put it, appreciation for the work we've done with underserved communities, in particular through nutrition and those kinds of programs that you often find in HES. Our community development programs in some communities have been dramatically impactful because they've helped to create green space and parks. But again, community development CD has been very much a collaborative kind of process. That's really important. So we're noted for that. Business development, we've done some great work in our BD program historically and helping scale up small businesses, move them up to the next tier, and that kind of work. That's where a lot of it's been focused because of SBDTC funding and how that. So there's no surprises there. The things you would expect, I've heard. What I have also heard, though, is there's a tremendous amount of interest in engagement. When I talk about the Tigers for Troops program, I don't care what community I'm in. When we talk about the partnership with the law school to get veterans assistance with their VA benefits, et cetera, lots of traction on that. Working with the J School, the journalism school, to take sort of their technologies and their education work out to editors, newspaper editors across the state in different ways. A lot of traction there. I just had an email this morning from our friends in vet science and in the health areas, medicine, nursing, and others. We're looking at a collaborative where we could actually have more clinics that we could take out state in the health arenas to do some 1 day, 2 day kind of things in communities that are having health disparities. So the engagement stuff resonates really well. My point is it resonates really well. So again, high touch, what I would call the classy extension programs resonate very well. Get a lot of resonance on the engagement ideas because that's kind of new and different to engage the whole university. But the other thing that I've heard, and I'll kind of close out with this one, is the high touch. So I start with high tech. I start with high touch. I end with high tech. The tool that we've put out, All Things Missouri, has probably been one of the most intriguing things that I have been a part of in my career. I had this idea once I began to see data and how it was being sort of stewarded here as a state. And I thought if we could collapse that into a portal, what Chris Fulcher and his team are doing, I don't say they have done, they are doing, is pretty transformational. I have been in rooms where I have talked about that. Yesterday as an example, I mentioned it in the coach's room, and I said, go to allthingsmissouri.org on your phone, and they literally do. And you can see them scroll it, and they're starting looking at it. They're like, holy cow, look at what we can learn about Missouri. And it's so easy to navigate. I've been in room after room after room and shown that in rural, urban, traditional, non-traditional settings. When people begin to frame around that, that's new. That's different. It's a high-tech a way to approach our work. So all of that together has really given me a sense, and again, I probably do need to write it up somewhere, but all that stuff is right there. And that leads us to this county engagement specialist model. It leads us to more high touch and high tech collaboratives. It leads us to more partnerships and more opportunities to collaborate and do philanthropy. All of those things kind of feed into this new way of thinking about our work and what we do. So a long answer to your question again, but I think that gives you sort of the horizon of what I've seen. And I don't see it moving a lot right now as I'm still out there visiting communities. I'll be in 2 counties next week in Northeast Missouri. So it's a continuation. And the neat thing about that, what I've just shared with you, is oftentimes when I'm in a county, I'm not only doing maybe an extension, stop by an office, but it's also maybe doing an alumni event. I've got several of those coming up where I go in and do a Mizzou alumni event, speak at a banquet or whatever. And I can talk about those same things with a community that maybe does not know extension all that well sometimes. And when I talk about these things, it makes sense to people. They get it. And the feedback is overwhelmingly supportive because they see this as being the university for Missouri. And so I just want to reiterate a lot in there, but I think that begins to tell you the temperature that's out there in outstate Missouri.
I have an observation followed by a question. It dawned on me at the recent Youth and Families Conference that there is no statewide or national recognition of extension that celebrates the outreach work done by land-grant universities. Has this been discussed in the halls of Jefferson City?
And I think the question was statewide or was it nationwide?
If they observed that statewide or national,
okay.
But they're curious about Jeff City in particular.
Yeah, Jeff City is getting it. One of the things that I think the leadership of the university, the system level would tell you is that the work that we're doing in engagement outreach in particular is really caught the interest of legislators in many communities. And we've done that without forsaking what we've been known for. So we've broadened that out. And what it's done is create a lot of energy with folks that didn't know us or didn't think we were relevant anymore. There was some of that you'd run into. I don't hear that much anymore. I mean, when I first got here, no more than I'd heard in North Carolina. But I'd hear people say, is extension really relevant? You'd hear some of that. And I kind of blow it off and go on. I don't let it bother me. but I really don't hear the relevant question anymore. I don't. I think we have really made progress on that. Now, when you talk about state and national recognition, let me go to the national level for a minute, because there's some stuff happening at that level that you need to know about. When I got here, I didn't know exactly how I was going to thread that to the national level. The National Extension Directors Association, NEDA, which are people like me that have responsibility for extension in the state. I did a presentation. They wanted me to do a presentation last year in Oregon at their national meeting around engagement. And actually, the entire conference was really tilted toward engagement. Nebraska, I was just talking to Chuck Hibbard there. They're actually in the process of hiring engagement specialists, and they're going to do a zone model where they're going to have engagement people over certain zones of the state. It's a very different approach than what we're doing, but it's a modification of what we're doing. I'm having great conversations with my colleague, Ed Jones, over in Virginia Tech. Really interested. He's trying to figure out how he can connect more with the broader engagement work at Virginia Tech. And because they're like working out there beside each other, but they don't even know each other's working together. The beauty of what we have is we're doing it in tandem. They're having to figure out how to do it with different offices on campus. That's a tough nut, because nobody wants to give up anything. In our case, it's all in. We're all there. So there's a lot of work nationally. There's another group through APLU, the Association of Public Land-Grant Universities, that I've been now asked to sit on their executive board that deals with economic prosperity and community engagement. They have a special interest group that has a board, and I've been asked to sit on that, and I'll go to my first face-to-face meeting in June on that. We are now moving into a leadership lever position there. There are national awards for this kind of work, though. That's another question you had: recognition, awards, etc. We have not. There has been at times in the past that Missouri, the University of Missouri, did compete and was given some kudos for extension or engagement work. I've held off on getting a lot of that right now, because what I wanted to do was to build up enough so that we've got a really good story to tell and that we can go win. I'm in it to win it if we go for it. So when you think about recognition nationally or at the state level, there's a lot of things happening there. Susan Reno's work that she's involved in with broader impacts, the collaborative that we have, the partnership we have in our office with the Office of Research and Economic Development, nobody in the U.S. has anything like that. When Mark McIntosh goes to his research colleagues and tells them what we're doing, when I tell our extension colleagues what we're doing and engagement colleagues, they're like, how do you get along that well? And we do. I mean, we're all in the same business ultimately, and it should be a natural thing, but it's not. We're beginning to break new ground. Susan's work around nationally in the broader impact space. Broader impact, just so you know what that means, it came out of National Science Foundation, that language, years ago. And the idea was, how do you show that basic research has broader impact? What's the broader impact on society? So the broader impacts, that's where the term comes from. And so we have a national center now. We are a national center, the National Center for Broader Impacts work. Through Susan's work, we received a $5 million grant for the university here. Great work on her part that we are now seen as the hub of that work. So this work we're into, and let me also throw this in, the work additionally that we have in continuing education. We have great work in LEDI and FERDI and nursing and MTI and all the different programs we have in veterinary science. We got great stuff going on there. OSHR, that even makes it richer. So when you begin to tee all this up, is Jeff City listening? Yes, they're listening. A reflection of that is how they're treating the university. The university's in a much stronger position. Obviously, Dr. Choi and others have had a lot to do with that, and they get a lot of credit, and they should, but he will tell you a lot of it's on us and what we've been able to do to change the narrative. We've changed a narrative in this state, and it's continuing to emerge, and that's a good thing. You're a part of that. You are central to that and what we do there. So again, it's really important that we see that the state's seeing it, the university's seeing it, and the nation is seeing it. Now, will it be easy or perfect? No. But I'll give you one more evidence that it's happening. Susan Blake and I have been in meetings now with the university leadership, provost office, and others as we talk about strategic planning and how do we put metrics that the university will be looking at in terms of its own success rating to measure engagement. This is new ground. People across this country have struggled mightily to try to get into that conversation, much less to have metrics. And in my role at the university system level, Allison Copeland's looking at it at a system level. How do we get metrics from all 4 universities so that we measure engagement and outreach? Once it gets measured at that level, budgets follow, strategy follows. Whatever gets measured gets done. And so there's right now, if you look at what universities typically look at, they look at student success measures like time to graduation rate, how quickly do students graduate, ACT or SAT scores, philanthropy, how much scholarship money you're bringing in. If you look in the research domain, they look at research expenditures, how many, they call it, there's different designations of grants, but how many top tier grants are you getting here? Those kind of things. Engagement, outreach, extension work has been struggled mightily in this country to get up to that level, and we're getting there. Now we're clawing our way there, and it's not easy because it's very difficult sometimes to put hard numbers around some of the public value work we do, but we're getting there. And the good thing is it's a conversation now. We've broken that barrier, and people see that we need to be there. So I've unwound a lot there, but you're into some stuff there that as we work internally on those things, it's going to give us bigger national profile and bigger state profile, national and state profile.
Okay, new topic. We recently received an email asking us to take a survey on faculty council. Many of us have had no interaction with faculty council. Is it important for MU Extension faculty to know about and be involved with faculty council?
I think so. Well, first of all, I'm appreciative of Clark Peters. I guess that would have come from him. Clark is out of HES. He is the chairman of the faculty council. And I did not, this is an example of something I didn't know they'd done, and that's fine. I don't have to know these things. They're perfectly legitimate. Well, first of all, I think it's interesting that you got the survey because that tells you they value your input. If they didn't send you if they didn't send it to you, that would mean they didn't value or didn't know you were there. So that's a really good thing. So I think there's a message there you need to pay attention to. I do think it's important that your voice be heard. It may be the kind of thing that over time, and I'm just thinking here off the top of my head, which is always dangerous, that what we may need to do is get Clark connected a little more with UMEA, because that tends to be sort of the wheelhouse where our faculty off campus in particular come together and have representation of their professional organizations. Or there may be some other venue we need to think about. I don't know. But I'm certainly open to that conversation, and I know Clark would be delighted to visit. He's super. Bill Wiebold was in that chair the year before. So you've got some friendly voices there in terms of extension work. And I think it's great that you're being reached out to. I hope you will complete the survey and be a part of that. And reach out to Clark if you've got questions, or let me know, and I'll be glad to set up some ways for him to connect with you in a deeper way.
There was a comment that followed that, and it's quite lengthy, and you've touched on some points, but I think the heart of the comment was really, it may be that some people who are out there aren't fully aware of the role of the faculty council and shared governance, because we have people from different backgrounds.
Absolutely. That's an important thing, and you're getting way in the weeds of a university now, but there is something called faculty governance. Faculty have tremendous influence, as they should, in an institution of public, certainly a public, really any higher education institution. You go to a private, public, land grant, any designation, you're going to see this go on. So there's this interaction between faculty. It's just like when I go over in some of the colleges here and I meet with faculty. I do that on a pretty regular basis, once or twice a year. They'll have me in just to talk and take questions, and it gives me good feedback. And it's really a shared, they call it shared governance. It's a shared governance idea. It's a way to get faculty buy-in, to have them as a part of co-creating. When you hear me talk about co-creating or partnering with you as folks off campus, in campus, that we partner internally with our internal stakeholders. That's faculty governance. That's striking at that. Same thing would be with staff, though. You know, another piece of this, you have a faculty council, and then you have a staff council. So if you're in some faculty designation, you'll fall in this bucket over here. But our staff, there's a staff council here on campus. I meet with them probably twice a year. They have me come in and do an update, and that's been great. One of the things they're really interested in is how do we connect with staff that are, again, scattered across the state working on different projects. They would love to connect with that group in a deeper way. So there's ways to do that. And so bringing this question up is really timely. I would be delighted to bring not only the faculty chair, but also the staff chair into some kind of dialogue so that our folks across the state can interact and learn more about what they do. Maybe that's something we need to do anyway. That would probably be a good thing to just tie that together so you could understand how that works, because you're part. What this really says, at the underlying theme here, is you are the university. You are part of the community of the university. And it's the university that we all need to be standing strong with. You know, we all have a tendency to think about, if you're in an outstate, you might think about your county or region. You think about, well, I'm in extension, or I'm in extension and engagement. Really, we are the University of Missouri. And if you listen to me talk a lot, and most of you have to do that whether you want to or not, you hear me talk about the University of Missouri a lot, because I think that's where we have gone astray institutionally, not just in extension work, but I think more broadly, even in colleges. Colleges want to talk about their college. They want to talk about their brand. They want to talk about engineering and agriculture and law and business and all journalism and all the different arts and sciences. They always want to tout that. And I have no problem with designating who we are within the university. That's fine. But it's the University of Missouri, and faculty are part of the University of Missouri. Your check does not say MU Extension. Your check says University of Missouri System, actually, when it goes into your account. And so we need to really be mindful of that. So if this is something people are interested in, I would be glad to connect you with faculty council. I think the current chair of both council staff and faculty council would be delighted to have this kind of connectivity. We just have to figure out the right forum to make that happen, so it would be a rich conversation and maybe begin to bring forward some ideas you're interested in.
Okay. There's been a little follow-up in here, but basically you've hit upon most of the points, and that is having a greater understanding of the functionality and all is key. We probably have enough time for one more question here. We're about 23 after. We haven't heard anything about Lincoln University lately. Is their budget and are their staffing gaps getting better? What is going on?
They're getting better. In fact, this morning I was on a call and talked to their interim dean at LU, Dean of Ag there. We were on the phone this morning as I drove in. And he's been in to see me. He's coming in to see me about every other week right now. Their model is different. Their Dean of Agriculture is basically the director of their research profile and their extension, and then they have a program coordinator that works under his leadership. So they have a very different model there, and that you'll find that true in many institutions, in particular in 1890 schools like Lincoln. Yes, we are working with them. They have seen an uptick in their funding. Their state allocation, I don't know what it says as of last night, but last year they got sort of back close to where they needed to be. They were trying to, their funding formula requires them to have a one-to-one match. And that has been a struggle for not only Lincoln, but other 1890s. If you go back years ago, they did not have to have a match. There was a federal allocation that didn't require a match. Then I think it was in a farm bill, maybe 2 farm bills ago now, that changed, and they had time. They had a period of time where they had to get to a match. Unfortunately, in Missouri, Lincoln was not able to get their match. There were years in there where they had to send money back to the federal level, to USDA, and that was very painful, and it put them in a dire strait. They had to lay off a lot of faculty, and it created these gaps you're talking about. I think you're going to see them begin to rebuild now. It's going to be a slow process, though, because they don't want to overextend and then go through another dip. So they're going to be cautious. But I am, again, really closely talking with their Dean of Ag now. He lives here in Columbia, actually. He's a Mizzou grad. got his PhD here. And so he's been actually coming in talking about a lot of the national issues and trying to get caught up on that. And then it's been a great conversation. Most of you know that Albert Essel and I, are the prior dean, and really hit it off well. And Albert's doing great things at the national level now with the land grant system. But again, we're moving in a good direction, and looking forward to good things there. We're actually talking about those gaps and where they may want to step in and do some work that we don't have to. And in particular on the research side, as it relates to maybe I'll use something like small farms, or dealing with urban agriculture, or dealing with small fruits and vegetables, specialty crops. There's some things in that niche that they could really step forward in. So I'm interested in that kind of work.
I think we're out of time for an adequate response to anything else, and there are no more questions in queue. So if you want to summarize and wrap us up and take us into the weekend.
Awesome. Well, this has been great, man. What questions today? Thank you. I appreciate this more than you'll ever know, because I learn a lot, and it really informs me about what's on your mind. It's a great way for me to get somebody asked a question about climate survey. I can do these and have a pretty good idea where the climate is on any given day because of what you're asking about. The questions around faculty governance were really intriguing today. That's something I hadn't gotten before from this. And so if you want to know more about that, that's something we can dig into in a future one of these. I will tell you one thing I'm thinking about doing, and I just have had this in my head. What I may do is I'm going to continue to do these. These are really good, but at some point I may begin to bring in some other members of the team occasionally, just so you can hear different voices with me. I'll still be here, not getting away from this. But if there's some topics or something that we think may be of interest, we may use this sometimes for others. Don't want to commit to that yet, but I'm thinking about that. So, and if you see other ways that we can communicate, or other ways that we can be more helpful to you, I want to do that. This is important. It's hard to get it on schedule sometimes, as Dennis knows, but we get it in there because I really want to make sure these kind of opportunities are there for you. So thank you. Have a great weekend. Enjoy Mother's Day. See you.